All right, let's talk about the stock market. We see it in the news every single day, right? But what is it really for? Today, we're going to peel back the layers and get to its true purpose. And I gotta say, the answer might actually surprise you. Okay, so when you think stock market, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of people, it's those flashing numbers, traders yelling, basically a giant high-stakes casino. And you know what? From the outside, that's a totally fair take. But what if all that chaos is actually serving a much deeper, more fundamental purpose? Believe it or not, this whole massive global system, it wasn't actually built for gambling. It was engineered from the ground up to solve one single crucial problem that sits right at the heart of our economy. And once you understand that one problem, it changes how you see everything. So here it is. This is the one big problem the whole system is built to fix. See, on one side, you've got people, pension funds, you name it, with extra cash, capital that they want to put to work. And on the other side, you've got innovators and entrepreneurs with world-changing ideas, new technologies, life-saving drugs, but they don't have the money to make it happen. The stock market is designed to be the bridge, the matchmaker that connects all that capital to all those ideas.
Okay, so that brings us to the first and honestly the most important job of the market. This is the part we rarely see on the news, but it's where the real magic of funding ideas actually begins. So how does this actually work in the real world? Well, imagine a company wants to build a huge new factory. They do something called an initial public offering, or an IPO. They're basically selling off tiny little slices of ownership in their company, we call them shares, to the public for the very first time. People like you and me, we buy those shares, and here's the absolute key. That money goes directly into the company's bank account. That is the capital that actually builds things and creates jobs in the real economy. And right there, that busts probably the single biggest myth about the stock market. When you hear on the news that a company's stock price is soaring, the company itself isn't getting any of that money. Nope. They got their cash way back at that initial IPO. All that daily up and down trading we see, that's a completely different ballgame. So you've really got two completely different markets here operating at the same time. You've got the primary market, that's the IPO, the one-time event where the company gets its money to grow. And then you have the secondary market. That's everything else, all the daily buying and selling we see on the news. In that market, the money just moves from one investor's pocket to another's. So if the company isn't getting the money, what's the point of all that trading? And that's where the engine of the whole system kicks in. See, the secondary market might not fund the company directly, but without it, this entire piece of economic machinery would just grind to a halt. It serves two absolutely vital functions. I mean, think about it for a second. Let me ask you this. Would you give a company your life savings for a little piece of ownership if you knew you could never, ever sell that piece to get your money back out? No way. Of course not. You'd be locked in forever. And that's it. That is liquidity. It's the promise, the confidence, that you can sell your share to somebody else whenever you want and turn it back into cash. This exit option is the only reason people are willing to take the risk of investing their money in the first place. Without that secondary market providing liquidity, the primary market, where all the big ideas get funded, it just couldn't exist. But that's just one half of the story. Liquidity is crucial, but this constant buying and selling also acts like a giant global voting machine. Every single trade, every day, is another vote being cast, expressing an opinion on a company's future. So what do these votes actually do? Well, think of it like this. A rising stock price is a massive vote of confidence. It's the market saying, hey, we believe in what you're doing, which makes it cheap and easy for that company to raise even more money to expand. On the flip side, a collapsing stock price is a huge red flag. It's a signal to stop, that something's wrong. Over time, this process is supposed to direct our society's resources toward the most innovative and productive companies. Now, it's not all just about money and prices. Being part of this public market, well, it forces companies to play by a certain set of rules. It imposes a kind of discipline that private companies just don't have. Okay, first step, transparency. Public companies can't just hide their numbers. They have to open their books to the world every 3 months. It keeps them honest. And second, there's the constant threat of a takeover. If a management team runs a good company into the ground and the stock gets super cheap, another better-run company can just swoop in, buy the whole thing, and replace them. It's a pretty powerful incentive to do a good job.
Okay, so that's a lot of theory, right? But what does any of this complex machinery actually mean for you? For me? Why should we care about any of this?
Well, because when it's working right, the stock market does something pretty incredible. It democratizes the ownership of progress. That's a fancy way of saying that the economic engines of our society aren't just owned by a handful of super rich people.
I mean, just think about it. Today, anyone with a smartphone can own a tiny piece of the most innovative companies on the planet. It's also one of the only ways that regular savings have a chance to grow faster than inflation over the long haul. And finally, it takes the insane risk of starting a new business off the shoulders of one founder and spreads it out over millions of different investors who each own just a tiny little piece. Look, here's a really simple way to visualize why that matters so much. Over time, cash just sitting in a bank account often loses its buying power because of inflation. But investing in productive companies, owning a piece of the economy, gives your savings a fighting chance to grow with the economy. Now, of course, this isn't financial advice. It's just a core principle of how this whole system is designed to work. Okay, so let's bring this all the way back to where we started. We kicked this off by calling the market a casino. And after all this talk about funding progress and guiding the economy, we have to ask, what about all that frantic daily betting? Because let's be honest, we can't ignore it. A huge chunk of the trading that happens every single day is just short-term speculation. It's people betting that a stock is going to go up or down in the next hour or the next day. So, is that part of the system just a useless, chaotic casino? Well, here is the final kind of mind-bending paradox of the whole thing. That speculation, the very thing that makes the market look and feel like a casino, is actually essential. It's like the grease that allows the heavy gears of the whole economic machine to turn smoothly. Just follow the chain of logic here. All those speculators constantly buying and selling every second, they're the ones creating that deep, instant liquidity we talked about. And that liquidity is what gives serious long-term investors the confidence to put their money into brand new ideas through IPOs. And that funding is what allows great companies to research, to build, and to invent. So you see, the casino, in a very weird, indirect way, helps fund human progress. So, look, if there's only one thing you remember from all this, let it be this. At its core, the stock market is a powerful, if maybe imperfect, system for crowdsourcing the funding of human progress. It uses the very human incentive of personal profit to try and allocate our collective savings toward what we hope are the most productive goals. So the next time you see those flashing red and green prices scrolling across the screen, maybe you'll see it a little differently. Is it a place for gambling? Yeah, on the surface, for sure. But underneath all that noise, is it also the chaotic but incredibly powerful engine that funds the future? I'll leave that with you. Thanks for joining me.